Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream for Week 9 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, we're answering any and all fantasy football related questions, whether it is trade questions, waiver wire pickups, starter sit questions going into Week 9. Regardless of what that question is, send it in my direction via the live chat or via super chat if you want to claim priority. Again, make sure you include your scoring format, whether that is a standard, half PPR, full PPR league. The more context you provide, the easier it will be for me to answer this question. Now, over the course of today's live stream, on the second monitor, I am watching this Dodgers game. On the phone, I am watching a basketball game. There is a lot of sports going on, so I'm trying to keep tabs with all of that. So if in fact you see me get distracted or pull my attention into a different direction, do not be surprised. Try to keep it all within the context of the situation. So as of right now, again, if you're going to send in a question, make sure you include that scoring format. That is greatly appreciated. I did see the first question of the day, Brian, and I did have the second context of your question. So let's get into it immediately. I know that over the course of today's live stream, people are going to ask, regarding all of the overall moves that were made today. And boy, there were a lot of them. Earlier today, Joe Flacco named the starting quarterback. There's a reason why we have Josh Downs as the thumbnail here of this live stream. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman Jr., their value increases mightily with the return of Joe Flacco to the starting lineup. Not only that, Deontay Johnson being traded to the Baltimore Ravens, in terms of helping Lamar, that certainly helps. As to how it's going to play out for that offense, I mean, Rashad Bateman, in my opinion, is gone now. He's not a viable option. If he's on your roster, he's probably droppable. We don't expect anything out of Deontay Johnson this week, of course, because, again, he'll probably play like 30% of the snaps out most. And then from henceforth after that, we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, he's pretty much just filling in for Rashad Bateman's role. A deep receiving threat that is going to get himself maybe 7 targets if we're lucky. And if he scores a touchdown, he's a start. Otherwise, we're screwed. That's pretty much what you have when you are a wide receiver on the Ravens that's not named Zay Flowers. And that has pretty much been the whole scenario for Ravens wide receivers for as long as we can remember. But going forward, we're going to see how that progresses and what we could potentially see out of him in terms of his productive, weeks, his non-productive weeks, what matchups require. It's going to be tough because, again, that offense is not friendly to wide receivers. Again, you got to remember, there are many weeks this season where you just cannot start Zay Flowers because you are worried about it being a blowout matchup. And if it becomes a blowout, he's not going to get any receiving upside, right? There's a lot of struggles within the overall offense. But either way, let's get into talking about some of these questions. Brian Luna Begins says, am I crazy for wanting to do this trade? So looking at the context as a whole, in a half PPR 12-team league, you'd be trading away Amon-Ra, Devontae Smith, and Shakir for Nico Collins, Olave, and Pacheco. So within the context, I don't think you're crazy for making this move. Obviously, there is a timeline on it, though. So Nico Collins requires 1 more week to return from his hamstring injury. And then, of course, no complications prior to that return for him to be active by next week and ready to go. With Stephon Diggs out for the remainder of the season, Nico Collins is a guaranteed top 5 wide receiver rest of the way. Which, in comparison to Amon-Ra, I'd say that Nico Collins is probably a little bit more valuable in that circumstance, rest of the way, half PPR, a little bit more touchdown upside. As for Devontae Smith versus Olave, I think they have very similar value going forward. Olave could be argued to have more value because of the loss of Rashid Shaheed. And then for Pacheco versus Shakir, again, if Pacheco comes back when we anticipate, week 10, 11, again, he would be the more valuable piece in comparison to Shakir and a half PPR. So I don't blame you for wanting to take this trade. I'd say let's take it, assuming, of course, you can survive without Nico and Pacheco for a couple weeks here. If you've got a really established record, 5 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins, undefeated, you would take it. Thank you. Old J Running sends in a question, says, Andrew, PPR, Tillman or DeAndre Hopkins rest of season? I'd rather have DeAndre Hopkins. That's who I'd rather have. The thing is, arguably, this is the most talented wide receiver that Mahomes has had in a while. I mean, you could argue that Rashee Rice is more talented currently, pre-injury, than DeAndre Hopkins is. But outside of that, if we're going to see any sort of numbers of favoritism going in the direction of Hopkins in terms of a high overall target count going forward, from what we saw from, Rashee Rice and this offense, what it's capable of doing for a singular wide receiver, I think I'd rather have that in this circumstance. Especially if they're going to continue to add pieces and improve as a team and Mahomes is going to get out of this rut that he's been in, I think, DeAndre Hopkins would be the guy that I'm a little bit more inclined to have on roster. Jokic is going to send this game into overtime, isn't he? Holy moly. Okay. Saying, next question is Eric, who sends in a question, or Eric says, what advice for Flowers and Deontay managers? I don't think that Deontay immediately impacts Flowers in a negative base. Again, you got to remember, like, Deontay Johnson's going to play on the outside. Flowers is going to have himself a couple, outside snaps, but primarily he's going to be like a slot receiving option for this offense. Like, if I go look up, let me look at his PFF profile in terms of overall snaps out wide in the slot, etc. Flowers, let's see here. Where is Zay? Okay, so Zay Flowers this season, yeah, so like, for example, this most recent game, 43% of the snaps in the slot position. Like, if he's going to continue to be like a primary slot receiver for this offense, or at least be featured in that role, if it's not him, it's like, Mark Andrews, a lot of the overall workload that would theoretically go to Deontay isn't going to be donated from Flowers. It would be donated from Rashad Bateman, which, again, that is, I think, the biggest thing. Now, going forward, there's a reason why. Again, I said it for many weeks, and I'll continue to say it. I want to trade away Deontay Johnson. I do not want Deontay Johnson on roster. Especially now that he's moving to this offense, like, I can't guarantee that he's going to get 10 targets per game. And that's what's really been his value prospect for the last couple weeks here. It's the fact that he's been getting himself a lot of targets and opportunity from Andy Dalton. I don't think we're going to see that, and it's definitely not something that I'm excited about in terms of the potential. As for Flowers, he'll continue to do what he does. I don't think that the addition of another wide receiver in this circumstance will impact him negatively to the point to where he is significantly dropping ranks. There could be weeks where he just, obviously the targets go in the direction of Deontay Johnson just because of the overall scheme and how they want to approach a defense, but ultimately I don't think it negatively affects him that badly. Let's see here. We have OJ Running, who sends in a follow-up, says one more, Jennings or Coleman or Moody. Okay, so, or Moody. You mean Mooney? I'm going to assume you mean Mooney. If it is, because Moody is a kicker. So if in fact you do mean the potential of Darnell Mooney, Keon Coleman, Juwan Jennings, as of right now, the Ayuk role is going to go probably to either Pearsall or Jennings or some combination of the two. That is not like a clear and away number. Like, in again, we saw it from the overall opportunity that Ayuk has been given. It's not that valuable. So then when we move on to like Coleman or Mooney, I'd rather have one of those two, and I'd probably just rather have the quarterback, connection to Josh Allen specifically. So I'd probably go with Keon Coleman as of right now. Moving on to a question that comes in from GK. It says PPR and point per carry. Trade Hall, Kupp, and Dell for Gibbs, BTJ, and Garrett. Okay, looking at it as a whole here. I mean, look, here's the thing. Going forward, in terms of value as a whole, okay, so Hall and Gibbs, I think, could, in a point per carry, point per reception league, I think they are very much, I honestly, you know what, now that I think about it, I think Hall is more valuable in that circumstance. Then when we move on to Kupp versus kind of BTJ or Garrett Wilson, I think that there can be very comparable value. Dell is going to get himself a little bit more opportunity going forward in the absence of Stephon Diggs, very similar to last year. Hopefully Dell gets more targets going forward and can kind of resume his role from last season where he was a dominant force. If he does so, I think this is a relatively even trade. I think it's a matter of kind of preference rather than a matter of kind of one side is objectively winning over the other. Obviously, there are some kind of hesitations for one side. Cooper Kupp, is he fully healthy? All that kind of jazz. BTJ, his health. But otherwise, I think this is a relatively lateral trade. If you like what you were getting in return, I don't have an issue with it. I think across the board, it's relatively fair, and I think both overall parties should be happy with the trade. Young Motivated sends in a question, says, what is Davante Adams' value in a trade PPR? I answered this question earlier on Discord. Let me see if I can go find who I sent that to. I don't even actually remember who I sent. Maybe I answered it on Patreon. Let me go pull this up right now. So in terms of wide receivers that I would probably try to go and get in exchange for Davante Adams, again, you have to understand, trading Davante Adams right now is going to be very difficult to accomplish, primarily because he has not played well for the Jets. That being said, I'd still be in the market of going after Olave's, Metcalf's, Higgins, Pickens, Pittman. Those are the guys that I want in exchange. I'm not going to sell him low. I would wait more weeks in order to get future upside out of him, then ship him off. Otherwise, those are the wide receivers I'd like right now. Thank you. Moving on to Dave, who says in a half PPR trade, Devontae Smith and Bigsby for Deebo Samuel. In the long run, I think I'm relatively comfortable with that. Yeah, I'll take the Deebo Samuel side of that deal in the long term. That works for me. Thank you, Dave. Kevin John sends in a question. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin says, was offered Marvin Harrison plus Ridley for Reed and DJ and Tracy. It's a 3 wide receiver league. Already have Nico Collins, Drake London, and Waddle. Take the Marvin Harrison upside question mark. Have Achane, Brian Robinson, Moss at running back. Worried about Reed in the long season. Okay, so theoretically, someone's offering you Marvin Harrison and Ridley, which again, Ridley and Marvin Harrison, the most inconsistent wide receivers you could possibly ask for at the current stance. But then you also have Reed, which has also been inconsistent. Moore, who's also kind of been inconsistent. And then Tracy. Yeah, I mean, look, if in the long run, I think objectively the more valuable side is the Reed side of this deal. If you were just fed up with that side, then sure, you can make that trade. Otherwise, I'm going to keep Reed, DJ, and Tracy in the long run here. When I look at your backfield, Achane, Brian Robinson, Moss is not a startable running back in any circumstance. So really, you just have Achane and Brian Robinson. By giving away Tracy, you're giving away a starting running back. And in the long run, if an injury is to occur to your team, you're going to suffer a lot because of that. And I think giving away that depth in order for just Marvin Harrison, because I do not believe Ridley is startable for a while until he truly does prove consistency on a weekly basis, I think I'd rather just keep what you currently have on roster. That's the way that I'd approach it. But again, if you want to just get out from underneath, the Reed and DJ situation, obviously the power is in your hands as the GM of your team, Kevin. Thank you. Dragon Slayer says in a PPR, should I try to trade away Tyreek Hill? I mean, again, that's totally your prerogative. If you try to trade him away, you get a top 5 to 6 wide receiver in return. If someone is not actively giving you back in return, and Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, if somebody's not giving you that caliber of a wide receiver in return, I'm not interested. I don't think that there is a situation in which I'm willing to sell low on Tyreek Hill because I know he is a 20-point per week wide receiver when in the conversation of just, being a part of this Miami Dolphins offense. Yeah, they were slow to start last week and really didn't get much activity within the passing game, but I think going forward, we should expect for them to be a pretty solid team. And somebody asked yesterday during the live stream, should we be worried about the kind of winter games of Miami? Typically in the back half of the seasons, they have struggled. Each of the last 2 years, they've gone into kind of the November, December months with a positive record, and then they've thrown away that positive record because of the overall games. When we look at their upcoming schedule, they've got they've got Green Bay in week 12 or 13 in Green Bay, and then they have in Cleveland week 17. Outside of that, everything is either at home or indoor stadium, so not too worried about it. Lou sends in a question, says, in a PPR, I'm currently 5-3. Trade DJ Moore, Mostert, and Murray for Tyreek Hill and Dowdle. Yeah, I'd be willing to do so. Yeah, let me see your quarterback. You have Mayfield? Cool. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that deal. I have no issue with that. I think that is a great trade in your circumstance. I think Mostert has more value than... I believe that Dowdle and Mostert, in terms of their value, Mostert, again, is very much so touchdown dependent, which, again, within that offense, could be argued that he is going to get that upside. But, I mean, Tyreek Hill is the most valuable piece here by such a large margin that, yes, I'd be willing to take that deal. Thank you. Nathan Dennison says, should I drop Tua for Stafford? Absolutely, yes. And should I drop Jordan Mason? I think Jordan Mason is droppable. Think about it this way, guys. Even if Christian McCaffrey doesn't return in week 10, okay, theoretically speaking, if he doesn't return in week 10 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, can you trust starting Jordan Mason? If you ask yourself that question and your immediate answer is no, then why are we rostering him? If we can't trust that he can play a full game and not have his shoulder get injured and have him forced to be, kind of have to leave the game, if he's not healthy enough to be able to sustain playing running back, then he can't be on my roster because, quite frankly, I don't trust that he'll be able to sustain a full game and be that handcuff that I need him to be. And I'd rather have Isaac Guerendo in this circumstance. All right, let me see here. I want to check the score of this Denver game. Kind of lost the vision of it. Let me see what the heck is going on. They're in overtime. They're up 4. Not bad. Okay, very well. Okay, let's see here. Next, we have a question that comes in from Daniel Barnes, who says, is Jonathan Brooks still worth holding onto my IR spot? Depends. If you have another alternative IR spot and you have more valuable players available, then sure, you can go ahead and make a swap. But, I mean, you've held him this long. The question is, when is he coming back? I have no clue. I would have thought he would have came back by now, but obviously due to the overall efforts of Chuba Hubbard and the fact that this is not a winning team, they are not forcing his return. So again, it's very much so kind of dependent on where your team stands, who you would put in that position. Obviously, Like looking at it across the board, if you've got a player like Mike Evans that would rather be in that spot and you can go pick up a player that is going to be actionable like a Tillman and start him this week that help you capture victories, and the argument can be made that where you can make that move, dropping him just outright. But outside of that, I mean, I would try to keep him, but if you can't, then yes, you know what to do. All right, let me see this. 2 minutes left in this game. All right, cool. Let me actually go ahead and pull up my... Here we go. What is the score of the Dodger game? I got to keep an eye on that as well. Okay. Todd sends in a question. Todd says, I have Jalen Hurts, Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Jamar Chase, Drake London, Devontae Smith, Evan Ingram, Javonte, Chase, Brown, McMillan, Pearsall, Jameson, Williams, PPR. Any thoughts on how to improve? I mean, look, when I look at this team across the board, there's no improving quarterback. Additionally, your running backs are great, your wide receivers are great, and your tight end just got the biggest uptick of overall potential for success remainder of the season due to Christian Kirk's overall injury. If you guys remember last season, after Christian Kirk went down with the injury, Evan Ingram went to averaging 10 targets per game and 15 fantasy points per game and a half PPR. Imagine what he's going to be capable of doing now. I anticipate for the remainder of the season for him to dominate. So in terms of quote-unquote improving your team, I mean, look, you still have good running back depth with Javonte Williams and Chase Brown. McMillan is not a startable option. Neither is, until... Really, I don't even see you starting Jameson Williams ever. I mean, really, your team is so solid within the starting positions that, at this point, you're just kind of preparing for upcoming bye weeks. And that's it. Outside of that, I think I'd keep the offensive kind of primary starter structure as is. I'm not trying to ship out any of those players in this current circumstance. So perhaps you can try to, make moves where you send away a Chase Brown and a Jameson Williams, but you're going to get same caliber players back in return unless someone wants to do a 2-for-1 where you're giving away 2 players and they're giving you back 1. All right, Ninja Jake says, did I pay too much? In a 12-man full PPR, I got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Warren for downs. Jaden Reed and Ramondre Stevenson. Okay, so you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Warren. For downs, Jaden Reed and Ramondre Stevenson. I don't think you specifically... Okay, so here's the thing. It could be argued that Downs rest of season is a starter in a top 24 capacity in a full PPR. Every single week for the remainder of the season, if Joe Flacco is starting a quarterback, Downs is guaranteed to be like a 12 to 15 point player. That's pretty much what we've demonstrated, or what has been demonstrated based on the games that we have seen with Flacco active. Now, in terms of the rest of your team, like you have Jalen Hurts, you have Neighbors, you have Lamb, you have Jacobs, you have Achane, you have Hawkinson. So the trade that you make in this circumstance, getting Warren and Hill, Warren is not going to play for your team. But then again, you don't need him to play because you have Jacobs and Achane. And you just pretty much plug in Tyreek Hill and keep it moving. So did you pay too much? I'd say arguably yes, but in the circumstance of your team being a start 7, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, I think it's an okay deal because at the end of the day, you're just trying to pretty much fill your starting roster with the best available spots here. And considering Lamb has passed his bye, Tyreek has passed his bye, Achane's passed his bye, Hawkinson has passed his bye. Like a lot of the players you have on roster, Jalen Hurts has passed his bye. Like they're going to be your starters every game henceforth. You're never going to take them out. So I think I'm okay with it. RJ sends in a question. Thank you, RJ. RJ says, sup, bro? In PPR, Daniels, Mahomes, Murray, Love, pick one. Who would I rather have rest of season? I'd rather have Jaden Daniels rest of season. It's not even remotely close. Thank you. Jack sends in a question. Says, trade Otten and Addison for Pittman. Look, if you're in need of a wide receiver desperately, and you don't need the tight end depth of Otten, then yes, absolutely. I'm okay with that. I have no issue with it at all. Now, there is an inherent risk with Pittman. You have to remember this because, again, Pittman has been dealing with a back injury for quite a while now. And if that back injury is going to continue to flare up, it could send him to the IR like it was originally rumored a couple weeks back. So just be careful with that. God's Gang says, got Ertz, Hawkinson, and Otten. Need a running back. Drop one for Madison? Yeah, absolutely. I would drop Zach Ertz right now for Alexander Madison. Thank you. Shung sends in a question. It says, in a 12-team full PPR, I have a current 4-4 record. Questions in the chat. All right, Shung, let me see if I can find it. If I'm not able to find it, do me a favor and type it again. So let me see if I can find this here. Control F, Shung. All right, I see your question. It says, Geno, Dak, Kareem Hunt, Pacheco, J.K. Dobbins, Bigsby, Tyreek Hill, Terry, Debo, Nico, Dobbs, okay. Addison, Otten, Ferguson, I want to upgrade on running backs. Should I? Question mark. If so, what should I do? Any other suggestions? Okay, so looking at your team as a whole, you need to improve your quarterback. That is the biggest problem. Dak Prescott is not a weekly start. I don't see it as so. Geno Smith without DK Metcalf, very sketchy as well. But in regards to Kareem Hunt, Pacheco, that's fine. That is a great singular piece. J.K. Dobbins is a great singular piece. Bigsby, again, in certain matchups will be fine. Terry, okay, so like if you're theoretically going to upgrade at running back, you got to ship one of your running backs out. You have too much depth if it's not a 3 wide receiver league, to the extent to where you can't start Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, and Nico. So after this week, after you get the return of Nico Collins back into your starting lineup, at that point, I would take Terry McLaurin and I would trade him away for the best available running back that you can go after. Obviously, if you're playing in a full PPR, which again, you didn't mention your scoring. Actually, you did mention it in the prior thing. So full PPR, yeah. If you're playing in a full PPR, if you're trading away a wide receiver of Terry McLaurin's caliber, which, look, as of late, let's see here. Where is McLaurin? So Terry McLaurin in a full PPR as of late, 20, 18, 13, 23, 15.8, 17.5. If you're giving away a player that as of the last 6 weeks is averaging 18 points per game, or 17, 18 points per game, you're asking for a 17 or 18 point running back in return at very least, which again, you should be able to potentially pull like a James Cook at very least. Those are the kind of players that you would want. A James Cook, an Aaron Jones, an Devon Achans of the world. If you can get those in return, beautiful. You can even pull the trade right now. If you can get it. You'll have to obviously place one of those guys in the flex and then wait until Nico Collins returns next week. But that would be the play. Go after players of that caliber. You want an 18-point running back because that is what you're giving in exchange. You'd have to go after a team that obviously is in need of wide receiver, though. If someone's going to give you like a lesser running back with an additional wide receiver on the side and that's the best offer you can get, then I'm okay with that. But again, just value your players properly. Don't sell them short. All right, let's hear. Edgar sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, I hope you're doing well. Questions down below. Okay, Edgar, let me see if I can find it in the chat. All righty, let's see here. Let me go ahead. Let's go into the live chat. Edgar, where is your question? Edgar, don't see anything in the live chat. If you could do me a favor and type that again, that would be greatly appreciated. Do I see anything from Edgar? No. All right, Edgar, just type it back in the chat if you can. Appreciate it. Once we get there, I'll go ahead and answer it. I appreciate it. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from Kyle Singer, who says, in a full PPR, pick one, Dobbs or McMillan? Yeah, I'd rather have Dobbs. I'm not concerned with Love. Again, they've just already confirmed earlier this week that based on the MRI, there's no serious damage. He should be fine. Brandon DeCoste says, I know you helped during season, but what about draft? What does that mean? I know you helped during season, but what about draft? I don't know what that means. Do you mean do I help with draft content? I was here every day during the month of August, so I don't know what maybe you're new to the channel, Brandon, but yeah, I'm here every year starting August 1st. Your boy starts content again. Appreciate it. Leap Link AFF says, who can I trade Deontay for? Full PPR. Again, you'd have to find someone who wants Deontay Johnson, which again, I don't want Deontay Johnson, so I would assume it's going to be very difficult to trade him. Okay, so when I think about it as a whole, again, if he went anywhere else, guys, literally anywhere else, it'd have been better than going to a Baltimore offense. They don't throw the ball much, and if they're going to be in leads, they're not going to, it's going to be tough. So, as a whole, I would assume the best case scenario, let me go look at some wide receiver names here. I need Shohei Ohtani right here to get walked. I do not need him to strike out. Please, Shohei, get walked and go to the fucking plate. Please, go to first base. All right, let me see here. I'm going to go look at some potential wide receivers names that we can maybe throw out. Theoretically speaking, okay, you could technically, if you got a really good standing, trade him for Mike Evans, right? That's a option that I'm throwing out. Jaden Reed has not played well as of late. You could trade him for him. You can trade him for Romeo Dobbs theoretically as well. And of course he strikes out. What a classic. Thank you, Shohei. You couldn't just, why did he even go for it? Brother, it's completely out of the zone. Anyway, Okay, sorry about that, guys. You could technically trade him for like a Jacoby Myers, who's the number one of his team. You could trade him for Ladd McConkey, the number one of his team. I know those are going to be probably difficult tasks to accomplish, but you can try. I'd love to get a George Pickens, probably impossible. I'd love to try to get an Olave, probably impossible. Maybe you can get Amari Cooper for him. Maybe you can get DeAndre Hopkins for him. Those are the kind, I mean, outside of that, Josh Downs, I'd love. Michael Pittman, I'd love. Anything, guys. I don't want Deontay Johnson, but that is just my opinion. I just don't really feel like the association with the offense really is going to help him. Emily Doyle sends in a question, says, "Hi, Andrew. I keep dropping and picking up Shakir and Coleman. I can't decide, haha. Who do you think has the most value rest of season?" Okay, so I do believe that Amari Cooper will eventually kind of really take over the outside receiving role of the offense. Obviously, he's still trying to integrate himself within the offensive scheme and kind of get himself more of a rapport with Josh Allen. But as of right now, clear and away, the most, kind of value target in the offense is Shakir. Shakir is getting the most targets. He has already got the rapport from Josh Allen last season. It's already all built in there. So I think Shakir, in comparison to Coleman, in a PPR is the more valuable piece. But considering you play in a half PPR, it's a little bit more sketchy to the point to where I'm like, okay, well, I kind of want more touchdown upside. I want the big playability down the field, which Coleman presents, which at that point, I'd probably go with Coleman. Because like Shakir, yes, he's coming off of a crazy week, but typically he's like, I'm going to get the ball 6 times and get 60 yards. And in a half PPR, I'm going to score 9 points a week. Maybe if I'm getting lucky, I get 10 to 12 if I score a touchdown. But for upside purposes, it's not going to be there. Now, if you don't need the upside, you just want a solid wide receiver 3, Shakir's that guy. Otherwise, I think Coleman he's got more volatility theoretically attached to his overall potential for the remainder of the season, but he also has a lot more upside performances ahead. Toby Martin sends in a question, says, "I traded Deontay Johnson, Tracy, Hopkins for Najee Harris, Dell, and Dobbs." Deontay Johnson, Tracy. Yeah, cool. I don't have an issue with that trade at all. I prefer Najee Harris over Tracy. I prefer Tank Dell over D-Hop. And Dobbs and Deontay Johnson, again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm willing to trade Deontay Johnson for Dobbs. So I have no issue with that at all. Now, as for, you also traded Etienne, Pickens for Cooper, Javonte Williams, Denver. I don't really like Javonte Williams rest of season. The most valuable piece in that entire equation, in my opinion, Toby, is probably going to be Pickens, considering how, well, Russell Wilson has kind of played within the offensive scheme. Unfortunately, Pickens had 2 receiving touchdowns called back yesterday. Otherwise, he would have had a 25-point game. So I don't know. I think in the long run, I think Etienne has more value than Javonte, and I think Pickens has more value than Cooper, to the point to where I probably would have kept. Thank you. Joey Boy sends in a question. Says, "I traded Pollard, Hunt, and Leggett for Bijan/Sutton. Is it too much?" No, it's absolutely not too much. Again, I would have traded all 3 of those players for Bijan by himself. I'm not even joking. I would have. Let me tell you why. Kareem Hunt in about 2-3 weeks here is gone. Pacheco will return. There's a reason why they put an actual timeline on his return, 6 to 8 weeks, because there is a potential in which he can return to the lineup and be perfectly fine. And once Hunt disappears, he has no value. Now, when we talk about Xavier Leggett as the number 1 outside receiver of this offense, he's going to pull number 1 cornerback coverage now. He may get himself more opportunity, share, but if it's going to be Bryce Young opportunity share, I don't know how valuable that is in the long term. Pollard, again, is the most valuable piece on that side, but in the long run, yeah, give me Bijan and give me Sutton. I'm perfectly fine with that deal, Joey Boy. I think it's a well done trade on your part. Come on, Dodgers. Let's lock this in here. Come on. Top of the 7th. Mookie. It's a foul. Okay. Joe Wilson sends in a question. Thank you, Joe. Joe says, in an 8-team half PPR, 1 flex league, I have Josh Allen, Chase, Reed, Gibbs, Montgomery, Pitts, and Cook. My bench consists of Jordan Mason, Sam Laporta, Brian Robinson Jr., Zach Moss, Worthy, and Juju. All right, I'm going to make a couple suggestions here, Joe. Let me see what your question is. You just lost Diggs today. What can I do to improve my team? Joe, you can do a lot of things to improve your team. Let me just go top to bottom, okay? On your bench, Mason, Moss, and probably either Worthy or Juju. Flip a coin. All 3 of those are droppable. We are immediately hitting the waiver wire and cleaning house. In an 8-team league, there has got to be extremely valuable players still there at running back and wide receiver. Players that are probably like Josh Downs may be available in that circumstance. Cedric Tillman is definitely available if I had to guess. Tyrone Tracy might also be available. Those are the kind of players you should be picking up in order to bolster your lineup with a little bit more depth. Now, in terms of what your starting lineup consists of, Josh Allen, great. Jamar Chase, great. Gibbs, great. Montgomery, great. Pitts, great. Cook, great. Reed is your only issue. So you're really just looking to improve your wide receiver too, which again, you could do via the waiver wire, or you can go about it a different kind of path, in which, again, you are picking up, or, you're taking like Brian Robinson Jr. and potentially taking him with Laporta or Pitts and just going after a top tier wide receiver for a team that is in desperate need of a running back and a wide or in a tight end. You could end up doing something of that nature. Do me a favor, Joe Wilson, just type in the live chat which wide receivers are available on waiver wire right now. You don't have to send in the super chat, just type it in the live chat and I'll get to it. Thank you. All right, so I remember I had asked somebody earlier to send in a message into the live chat because I had it wasn't there. I think it was Edgar. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to travel to the live chat and hope that Edgar has sent that in. Edgar, I apologize for making you wait this long. I just obviously wanted it to get sent in. Now that I see your question, hopefully you're still here, Edgar. Edgar says, in a 10-team league, I'm currently 5-2. I'm thinking of sending offer for Nico Collins. I would send Jamar and Najee for Nico and Brian Robinson. What do you think? Okay, so I think that is a lateral trade. I think across the board it is equal. I think it's fair for both sides. I think both sides find benefit. Obviously, there is the issue primarily that Nico Collins does not play this week. But in the long run, again, from what he has demonstrated thus far this season, now that there is no Stephon Diggs, there's even more target upside for Nico to finish as a top. I mean, literally, once he comes back and he's fully healthy, he could be the number one wide receiver rest of the way. He could be. Now, in regards to Najee Harris versus Brian Robinson, I think they're both very valuable. Both have very similar kind of production, and both of them are kind of contingent on scoring a touchdown. Otherwise, the yardage will typically be there. So I think across the board, it's an even trade. I don't have an issue with this. If you prefer to have Nico and Brian Robinson rest of the way, I'm perfectly cool with that. No issue at all. Just understand, again, there is inherent risk with Nico, hamstring injury. There's always a potential of him re-aggravating that, but we're just going to hope that is not within the realm of possibility this year. All right, let me scroll down to the bottom of this live chat, see if there's a potential in which... Where are we looking? Okay, so I was looking for the question that was sent in. Yeah, I wanted to follow up here in terms of wide receivers. I'll wait for that overall response. Until then, let's continue on answering these questions. All righty, where are we? Okay, so after Joe Wilson, we have Hayden Riggs, who says, traded Bowers and Addison for Nico Collins and Hawkinson. Yeah, beautiful, fantastic. That says, Hayden, you just absolutely GTA highway robbery, whatever you want to call it, inside man, you robbed the bank and you cleared house. I don't know how you accomplished getting Nico Collins in that circumstance, but congratulations. That is massive. Papa Bless says, how do we feel about Zay now with Deontay Johnson? Also DJ Moore or Zay rest of season? Okay, so first and foremost, Zay Flowers, I think his overall upside of potential is not going to be impacted by the overall kind of presence of Deontay Johnson. Yes, there are going to be targets kind of funneling in his direction, but just in the same way in which Bateman had been a top 38 wide receiver for 4 of the last 6 games, those overall opportunities are going to go in the direction of Deontay Johnson because he is a significantly better wide receiver than Bateman. So I think that is the person who's immediately going to take a hit. I don't expect that to potentially impact Flowers to a negative base to where you're like avoiding him at all costs. In fact, I wouldn't even say that he's lesser valued than DJ Moore. I'd say that he's perfectly fine and still ahead of DJ Moore in this circumstance going forward, Papa Bless. Jay sends in a question, says, pick up Jacoby Myers, Cedric Tillman, or Keon Coleman in the flex. Look, at this point, Jacoby Myers is by far and away clearly the number one. Like, I can guarantee that every week it's either him or Brock Bowers getting 10 targets, or maybe even both of them every single week. That I can guarantee. As for the overall potential of Keon Coleman getting that kind of level of opportunity, not possible, but the quality of his opportunities may be a little bit better because of Josh Allen rather than Gardner Minshew. And as for Tillman, I mean, again, the guy he's had 2 great weeks when given opportunity. Outside of that, we have no context as to what his downside performance could look like, but I would assume it looks like any other one of these wide receivers. So if you want to take the momentum of Tillman and ride with it, go for it. But if it was me, I mean, at this point, it's either the way that I had it kind of ranked yesterday, it'd probably be like Keon, Jacoby, Tillman in that order as of right now. Adam Amar sends in a question, says, Hawkinson or Andrews rest of season? I'd rather have Hawkinson. And Mason or Garendo? I'd rather have Garendo. Thank you. Brian Colorado says, PPR, Superflex, pick 2, DK Metcalf, Montgomery, Jacobs. If we're talking about rest of, is it this week or is it rest of season, Brian? I'm going to assume this is this week's question in terms of like who we starting in the flex if you have 2 potential flex spots. If in fact that is the case, I don't even think DK Metcalf plays this week. I'm going to be honest. So you're pretty much positioned to play Jacobs and Montgomery. If in fact you get into a position in which we do not see DK playing, of course, you start these guys. If DK is active, then I would play him ahead of Montgomery. Thank you, Brian. Evan Call says, just traded for Jameson Williams. What is his outlook for rest of season? Kind of worried about the lack of consistency. I think he's fine. Again, look, you understand that by getting him in a trade, you are looking for this offense to continue to light up defenses. If they're going to be in shootout kind of propositions, it just takes one pass and the guy scores 13 fantasy points. So I don't really have an issue with it. I'm only concerned about the suspension he just had. And then obviously, I think, I don't know, there was some, there was a video leaked on the internet earlier today in regards to, I don't know, some crazy stuff. So I don't know what the context of that is. I don't know where we're going with that. We'll have to wait and see. As of right now, we'll just kind of keep it as is. I think Jameson Williams and his value is kind of baked into that offense. You've seen in the last kind of 2 weeks here, or most recently, like Khalil Shakir is scoring touchdowns in an abundance. Like the guy has scored a receiving touchdown each of the last 2 games. There's enough touchdowns to go around to where Jameson Williams will be fine once he returns. Anthony C says, who should I prioritize on waiver? Keon Coleman, Josh Downs, McConkey. Okay, so now that we have a 100% confirmation that Joe Flacco is starting quarterback, I legitimately rather have Josh Downs. I'm not even joking. I think Josh Downs is the most valuable prospect of all 3 of those names. I'd rather have him number 1. I'll take Keon Coleman 2 and McConkey 3. That's the way that I would approach it. Looking at the season stats, okay, where we've seen Josh Downs play with Joe Flacco this season. Let me just go ahead and let me just cross-reference it really quickly. If I go and we go to Indianapolis Colts, I just want to see the games. Okay, so weeks 4, 5, and 6, okay, we saw Josh Downs play with Joe Flacco. His fantasy point contributions in that game in a PPR, in those games, 22.2, 15.9, 19.5. He is a 15-plus fantasy point prospect in a full PPR with Joe Flacco at quarterback. Guys, it's an automatic. Josh Downs and Michael Pittman Jr. are back. Like, these guys are going to be ridiculous plays going forward. All right, let's see. We had a question that came in from Fernando Perez, who says, in a PPR, I got Purdy on bye week. Pick up Stafford or Cousins. I'd rather play Stafford against Seattle. Thank you. Eric Nixon says, Vikings, Saints, or Titans. As of right now, I'd like to keep the Vikings as my starting defense every week for the remainder of the season. Even against, going against Flacco, you should probably guarantee Flacco is going to throw 2 touchdowns and keep it competitive. But I still think that Flacco is capable of making mistakes. The Saints defense, in my opinion, is only startable if they're playing against Bryce Young. Otherwise, if it's Andy Dalton, I don't really want anything to do with it. So Vikings would be the play. If you have an extra roster spot, you could pick up the Titans and play them. Otherwise, for right now, I'm just going to roll with the Vikings. And then for your next question, Mahomes or Darnold. I mean, if we're talking about this week's in specific, Mahomes versus Tampa Bay secondary or Darnold versus the Colts secondary, they've both got incredible matchups. I legitimately would rather play Mahomes. I think it's way too good of a matchup. Everyone has torched that secondary. I mean, Kirk Cousins did it twice in 1 month. Like, just ridiculous numbers. Okay, I wanted to go back to the live chat and see if we had any context in terms of the available wide receivers that I was asking for earlier. Let me see. Is there anything? Let me cross-reference this really quickly. So the question was sent from Joe Wilson. I want to see if Joe Wilson is perhaps still in the neighborhood. Joe? No, I don't see anything from Joe in the live chat. Okay, Joe. Well, either way, we'll continue on answering questions. For those of you who are joining us tonight, welcome. Again, I have the top monitor playing this Dodgers game, which, of course, we're going to have to wait and see how this game transpires. On the other monitor, I have a couple NBA plays in terms of Underdog rolling. I had a couple plays hit already, and we're just trying to see these other plays kind of close out and hopefully pull in some dubs here. Is that a Wednesday game? Wow, oh my God, I think... That's crazy. Okay, we'll have to wait and see. All right, continuing on. Let's see here. After Eric Nixon, we have Boy J, who says, my first year, I'm currently 8-0. That is ridiculous. Consider yourself lucky, first and foremost. You can call it skill. It's luck. I'm telling you right now, 8-0 is ridiculous. 8-0 requires no injuries, and I don't know if you've had injuries, and if you haven't, I mean, the matchups must have been beautiful. This week is my toughest. Full PPR, we have Purdy on bye, we have Mixon, we have Higgins hopefully playing this week, Devontae Smith, Pitts, Rashad White want to replace him, Mayfield, Saints, defense. Question is below. Okay, Boy Jay, I'm going to hope that it is in the live chat. If it is not, I'll ask you to type it again. Boy Jay, it is not currently in the current iteration of the live chat. It must have been typed in like probably 5 minutes ago, and that's why it's kind of updated and out of the conversation. So if you could do me a favor and type that in, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, while we wait for Boy J to send in that question, we're going to go ahead and continue to answer some of these others that were sent in. Greatly appreciated, guys. Hot Dog Guy sends in a question, says, I'm in a half PPR 12-man league. My team is JD5, JJ, CD, C9. Oh my God, Chuba Hubbard, and Njoku Olave. Pretty strong team, to say the least. My bench consists of Marvin Harrison, Mike Bright, okay, Myers, Dowdle, Brooks. Any tips? I mean, honestly, what's your record? That's what I want to know. It says I would have to offer a serious haul for a running back since nobody trades. I mean, looking at your running backs as a whole, K9 is going to start every single week until the rest of the time. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard is very much so contingent of matchups on top of the quarterback play, on top of Jonathan Brooks' current status. Considering your next best running back is Dowdle, which, again, could suffice in the long run and could still be like a top 24 option, closer to 24 than anything rest of the way. I think the best plan of action is to take either Njoku or McBride and ship them. Now, again, if you want to keep them both until they pass the bye weeks and then you're kind of clear of that, you could do so. The next best opportunity in which you would have is taking like Marvin Harrison and shipping him for a running back. Because at this point, like it's either Marvin Harrison or Olave that's getting shipped in order to get that RB2 stabilized. If not, and you're not willing to ship that and you want to just keep it in order to kind of have the depth, I mean, really, at this point, JJ and CD are past their bye weeks, so you don't have to worry about that. It's really just Marvin Harrison or Olave in that flex spot. You could play matchups there. If you don't want to ship one of those two, which again you would have to, again, you're going to have to ship them for valuable prospects. Like if I'm moving Chris Olave right now in his current status of being the number one option and really the only guy getting targets, like I want Aaron Jones in return. That's what I want in a PPR. I want a DeAndre Swift. I want the top tier, kind of upper echelon. Not the top tier. I don't want a Saquon. I'm not asking for that, but I want the next kind of tier of player just below them. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Adam Amar, who says, can we get rest of season rankings video? Love the vids. I appreciate it, Adam. Look, as of right now, there's a possibility. Can't guarantee it, but there's a possibility. Again, here's the thing, right? In order to do a rest season rankings video, the volume of time that it would require and the volume of sleep I'd have to lose in order to accomplish that may not be worth it for my legitimate health and mental capacity for the remainder of the season. I understand that it helps in the long run. You just got to ask me, Andrew, which player do you prefer, X or Y, or X, Y, or Z? And I will straight answer the question. But in terms of pulling out a whole video, all the stops, 40 rankings of running backs, wide receivers, 32 rankings of quarterbacks, tight ends, it will literally break me. So at this point, I've kind of opted to playing it safe and kind of keeping the sustainability of my mental, considering it's only week 9 and we've got another 9 to go after this one concludes. Slurms says, trade Pittman for Chubb. No, I don't want Chubb. I'd rather have Pittman. If you need a running back, I'd go after somebody else. In this context, like if I'm giving away Pittman at this point, which I do believe, again, we can pull up the stats with Pittman with Joe Flacco in a PPR. Let's pull it up, shall we? As of right now, in weeks 4, 5, and 6 with Joe Flacco, Michael Pittman Jr. put up 17.3, 14.7, and 12.5. So he is, on average, about a 14 to 15 point wide receiver. So I better be getting back a 14 to 15 point running back in that kind of circumstance, right? That's what I would want in a return situation. So I don't want Nick Chubb because I don't expect him to be putting up 15 points in any capacity. I mean, a healthy Nick Chubb last year could do that, but not this one. Spencer sends in a question, says, PPR start 2, Garrett Wilson, Dell, Downs, Moore, Coleman, Deontay Johnson. If I'm starting 2 out of this group, man, I mean, I have a hard time not starting Dell and Garrett Wilson, but Downs is somebody that in a PPR I'm not avoiding. Like I have to play Downs, and I'm probably having to play Garrett Wilson. I think Dell is the sacrifice in this circumstance. And maybe you can move Dell to playing flex. I think that's a possibility. Otherwise, the rest of them are benched. Nick Q3435 says, just joining in, same question, different lens. Okay. I'm stacked at wide receiver. I don't care about slow and steady. Okay, very well. I'm looking for the best shot at upside / smashes. Downs, Tillman, and Ladd McConkey. It's Downs. I'm telling you. It is Downs. That is the player. Guys, there's a reason why this is here. It is by far and away Josh Downs. That is the most valuable player. If he is somehow available in your league, do yourself a favor. I'm not joking. I'm burning number 1 waiver for him. If I'm using Fab, I'm burning 30%. Okay, let's just think about this contextually. The Indianapolis Colts just decided to bench, not because of injury, but because of performance, their starting quarterback that just a couple years ago, literally last season, 2023, they spent the number 4 overall pick, and he was the 3rd quarterback drafted after, of course, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud in the 2023 NFL draft. They decided to bench him based on performance alone. In that circumstance, if you are benching him based on performance, just like Bryce Young, you would not anticipate him to come back out from benching unless an injury was to occur to the starting quarterback, which from what we've seen from Joe Flacco, he is a veteran, big quarterback that, again, is smart enough to stay healthy and is not going to let this opportunity slip out from underneath him. In the same way in which he was given the opportunity last season, he ran with it straight to the playoffs. There's a chance that they could do the same thing here. Again, Downs is, I'm telling you guys, he has so much value rest of the way. Jay Nice sends in a question, says, trade offer for Pickens, Brooks for Devontae Smith. In the long run, I'm okay with that. I don't have an issue. I think Brooks is kind of fodder in this scenario. It's just a matter of like which one of those 2 wide receivers am I going to have on roster and who's going to present the most potential for upside. I think that it could be argued that they're both very much so of similar value, especially if Goddard's injury is going to continue to sustain in this circumstance. It could also be argued that Pickens is more valuable than Devontae Smith. So that in itself, again, it's kind of up to your preference. As of right now, again, you guys know I'm a Devontae Smith guy, so I'm all in on that. Fuzzy sends in a question, says PPR pick 2, Keon Coleman, Tillman, Leggett, Wan'Dale Robinson. I have no interest in Wan'Dale Robinson. If this is a pick 2 in terms of starting for this week, I'm going to have to look at the overall matchup, and obviously I'm wondering who's playing quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, but even regardless of those 2 factors, I'm probably playing Keon Coleman and Tillman. I'm just going to play the hot hands as is. Thank you, Fuzzy. Rogo says, yo, bro, losing Diggs on my team is full even if he goes. Thinking of thumbs down CJ for Matt / Knicks, got Baker. Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of CJ Stroud, once he gets Nico Collins back, he'll be fine. Again, you just have to give him time. Now, in terms of your circumstance, going into this week, I don't want to play either CJ Stroud or Baker Mayfield. So if I was going to play one of the 2, I would play Baker because, again, he has proven that he's an elite quarterback. But out of the group as a whole, I'd like to play Matthew Stafford or Knicks ahead of both of them. That being said, it would require you to drop somebody else off of your team because, I mean, unless you're willing to really just give away Stroud for free, I don't know if I'm willing to go that far. I do believe that Matthew Stafford and Knicks have played incredibly well, and they'll probably continue to do so. So, I mean, am I making that move? That's a bold move to make. Sending away Stroud because of the Diggs injury and picking up Matthew Stafford. Honestly, I wouldn't be totally against it because I would assume that Matthew Stafford has just as much upside. And honestly, I'd say that the offense is they'd have very similar potential for touchdowns. Especially with the upcoming schedule for the Rams. But, I mean, again, it is hard for me to outright just say do it because, I don't know, I think CJ Stroud is a talented quarterback, and once Nico's back, he'll obviously be fine. Let me look at his upcoming schedule here. Texans schedule. No, not Texas Longhorns schedule. Texans. Jeez. All right, they have the Lions, the Cowboys, the Titans, the Jaguars, and the Dolphins. I mean, I want to keep him. If you can, keep him, roll Baker this week. Otherwise, drop somebody else off of your bench. Maybe looking at the bench here as a whole, there's nobody to drop, dude. Yeah, so at this point, you can go for it or you can keep it as is. If you're looking for the 1 week kind of play, Stafford's it. If not, and you're just looking towards the future, you keep him as is and you just roll Baker. Thank you. Let's see here. Geek Stallion says, in a PPR league, my team is 2-6, so I need to win this week. Do I trade Breece Hall and Marvin Harrison for Achane and Neighbors? That is a good question. I haven't worked on wide receiver rankings yet, but I would assume that I'm going to have Neighbors relatively highly ranked in comparison to Marvin Harrison, who has to take on Chicago, which I don't love that matchup as a whole, but again, could find success considering the injuries to that secondary. Am I trading away Breece Hall, though, for Achane and then... That's a tough one. Okay, so this is what I'll say, Greek Stallion. As of right now, I do not have an answer for you. After tonight, after I've established my overall rankings, tomorrow during our live stream to begin the day, I'm going to write this down. To begin the live stream, I'm going to answer your question. So whether or not you are here, I will answer that question so that you know whether or not to make that done deal. Because right now, that is not an easy one to answer, to say the very least. Okay, let me see here. There was a couple questions that I knew that I missed, and I told people to type in the chat. I see a couple of you sent in questions, but there wasn't anything attached as well, so I'm going to go ahead and travel back there. So we need Boy J, which, of course, I'm going to go ahead and Boy J. And then the other names that just got sent in that didn't have anything attached was Samir and Garza. So let's get to those really quickly into the live chat. Hopefully those are available. Let's see if Boy J was in the neighborhood. Control F. All right, Boy J says bench is Collins, Hawkinson, Chiefs defense, and Tolbert. Do I try adding on waivers Minshew or Winston? I don't want Minshew. For the Purdy buy, I think Winston would probably be the Purdy buy pickup. But I mean, look, you already have another quarterback on roster, so I don't know if you need to make this kind of move and add McConkey or Myers or Tyrone Tracy. Okay, so let me get the full context to your team. Now that I have that question in mind, let's go back up here, Boy J. Okay, so in terms of your 8-0 team, considering you have Mayfield, I honestly, at this point, yeah, starting Winston's probably a little bit smarter than starting Mayfield against Kansas City's defense. So making a move in which you're picking up Winston, rolling him over Purdy because of the overall bye week situation, not a terrible, potential look for a fix. And then after that, yes, I'm trying to pick up Tyrone Tracy. Thank you. That is the long-term kind of approach to the situation. Because you definitely, again, like you said, you're not comfortable with Rachaad White there, but I think he might have to be a play until you get Tyrone Tracy fully healthy from the concussion protocol cleared. Samir says, in a 12-team standard league, currently 5-3, standing first place, I have Kyler, Chase, Nico, Puka, D-Hop, Mixon, Mason, Hunt, Algier, and Jalen Warren. Should I trade Nico, Puka, or Chase for a better running back? Considering what you have on roster, Mason, Mixon, Hunt, yes, you have to. I mean, unless you are going to somehow be blessed with the potential where an injury takes place and Warren, Hunt, Mason, and Algier are going to step up and get more value of opportunity going forward, you would have to make a move. Now, if this is a 3-starting wide receiver league, I'd say that you could potentially just keep it as is. Otherwise, you would take one of those 3 wide receivers and go for a top-tier running back. When I say top tier, I mean legitimately the video that we posted earlier today, I want a top 12 running back at the base minimum. I don't want Tony Pollard's. I want Saquon's. I want Henry's. I want Gibbs. I want those type of players. And you should be able to get them, assuming that, that team needs a wide receiver and is obviously willing to take a Chase, Nico, or Puka, etc. All right, then after Samir, we had a question from Garza that wasn't anything attached to it, but let's see if I can find it. That's Jerry Garza. That's not the right one. Joel Garza, do me a favor, type in the live chat. Thank you. All right, until Joel Garza types in the live chat, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue on answering questions. Do appreciate you guys sending those through and being patient with me. Thank you. All right, scrolling down, we had a question that came in from Carlton, who says, trade Hunt for Kelsey. Absolutely, no questions asked. Immediately trade that. Pollard and Waddle for Jones. Pollard and Waddle for Jones? If you're playing in a smaller league, right, we're talking about 8 teams, 6 teams, sure. Otherwise, in a 10 or 12-team league, I don't think I make that move unless these guys don't even start. Like maybe they're your fifth wide receiver running back on roster. That's the only time I'd make that move. Otherwise, I'm keeping Pollard and Waddle. And yes, I'm making the move for trading Hunt for Kelsey. Moving on to Demise, who says, in a week 9 full PPR, Kelsey or Otton? Really good question. Again, they were both incredible last week. I'd rather play Kelsey, though, if it was my team. Especially considering what Kyle Pitts just did to them. Like, that's just the auto play in my mind. Brees versus Scary in a flex full PPR. I would like to assume that Brees Hall will get himself the fair share of opportunity he deserves. But Scary Terry in a full PPR, like we talked about earlier, the guy's at 18 points a week. So really, you don't even have to take a risk. You just start him and not even worry. And just keep it moving. Did they score another run here? Jeez Louise. All right, moving on to Derek Doug, who says, Jalen McMillan, Keon Coleman, or Tank Bigsby in the flex. As of this week, considering I expect ETN to return and Tank Bigsby doesn't get much receiving upside, it's probably Keon Coleman as the play. Especially considering Jalen McMillan's playing against Kansas City, I'm not really interested in that matchup against those cornerbacks. To the Max sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, which 3 wide receivers would you pick up and what order? Mooney, Downs, McConkey. Okay, Downs number 1, McConkey number 2, Mooney number 3. Next question, Shakir Tillman. Oh, those are actually, no, it's not even next question. They're all together in this. Holy moly. Okay. let's rewind a little bit here. So you have a lot of names available here. The top 3 that I would consider in a full PPR scoring format would be Downs number 1, probably Shakir number 2, Myers 3. Those are the 3 you got. Oh my God, you have Dell as well. Holy shit. To the max, brother. I mean, pick up everyone. Put a waiver for everyone. But okay, now with this context, okay, now we have to recalibrate here. Downs would still be 1, but then Dell is 2, Shakir is 3, Myers 4, McConkey 5, Tillman 6, Coleman 7, Mooney 8. Whew. Next question, Love or Stafford rest of season? Love is a 2 touchdown per game guy every single game as long as he's healthy. He has had 2 or look, I mean, we talked about it last week. In the last 11 games, he has had 2 or more passing touchdowns or 2 or more touchdowns scored in general. And 6 of those 11 games consisted of 3 or more total touchdowns scored. Jordan Love's the guy I want to have. Now, again, he may not be healthy, so pick up Stafford anyway, keep him on roster and keep it rolling. Just to have the insurance policy. OGJC7 says in a half PPR, Devontae Smith, Hunt, Addison for Puka, Tracy. Yes, immediately. Give me Puka, Tracy rest of the season. Thank you. Derek Doug says Mason/McCaffrey on bye. So Tracy over Bigsby at running back slot. Tracy is unfortunately in the concussion protocol. Earlier today, we dropped the running back rankings for week 9. I have Devin Singletary ranked on screen, primarily because, again, Tracy is in the concussion protocol, left last night's game at the end, and will probably have a hard time clearing the upcoming protocol prior to Sunday. If we can get information by Saturday that he has cleared it, then great. He will start over Bigsby. Otherwise, Singletary is starting for the Giants this week in the absence of Tracy, which if you have Singletary available in your league, I'd pick him up and play him over Bigsby as well. Hank Hennig says start Kansas City defense or keep. I would start them this week. Yes. Could pick up Cincy, Titans, Patriots. No, I have Kansas City's defense relatively high ranked within the upcoming matchup. So I like the upcoming schedule here as well. Yeah. As of earlier today, somebody on Patreon had asked me, Andrew, can you give me your top 12 ranked defenses? I had Kansas City as my number 1 or 2. It was kind of filtering throughout my mind, but I left them at 1. That's how confident I am this week with them. AP sends in a question, says, I'm 3-5 currently. I'm trying to pull off a trade for a top wide receiver. With a 5-3 RB starved team, my running backs are Hall, Achane, Dobbins, Adams, Irving, Tracy, Mason. Who's Adams at running back? I think maybe Adams is not. Who the heck is Adams? Am I crazy? Anyway, so let me look at this. Let me filter this. All right, so looking at the context of this team, right? Those are your running backs. Wide receivers are Jefferson, Lamb, London. How do I approach to get this done? Okay, so if you are looking to, well, obviously, your wide receivers are really strong, okay? Oh, sorry, that's their best wide receivers. They have Jefferson, Lamb, London. Scratch it. Understood now. Mason has no value. So pretty much you have Hall, Achane, Dobbins, Irving, Tracy, which are your most valuable running backs because Adams is not a running back. So if I was to make a trade of this caliber, considering you are in need of a wide receiver and they are in need of a running back, I'm taking Hall or Achane and shipping it for either Lamb or Jefferson. Don't care which of the two they give me. Does not matter. I'm taking whichever they want to give, and I'm giving whichever they want to give. Now, if I was to go after London, at that point, I'd be willing to give like Dobbins plus Tracy and just get London there. I'd even be willing to give Dobbins, Tracy for any of the other two running wide receivers, Jefferson, Lamb, but I doubt that they'd give it. So yeah, Dobbins, Tracy for London. Otherwise, Hall, Achane, 1-for-1 for Jefferson or Lamb. Doesn't matter. Whichever one they prefer, we take it. Dylan says in a full PPR team is in the chat. 2 losses, less than 500. Okay, Dylan, let me go ahead and type you into the live list here. And then Brian Colorado has sent in a question, and Roy Shaver has sent in a question. Nothing attached to all of those. So we're going to go ahead and travel through the live chat in order to find them really quickly. So, okay, so we're going to try to find Garza really quickly. Joel Garza says, drop Keenan Allen for Deontay Johnson or grab Downs in a full PPR. I'd rather grab Downs. 100%. No doubt about it in my mind. I'd rather have Josh Downs the rest of the way. I don't expect them to go back on their benching of, Anthony Richardson this season unless an injury was to occur, and I don't expect an injury to occur. Then we move on to Dylan. Dylan, there's nothing in the chat. If you could do me a favor and type in the live chat, that'd be greatly appreciated. Then we move on to Brian. Brian, let's see here. Brian Colorado, where art thou? Brian, do me a favor, type in the live chat. Thank you. Then we move on to Roy Shaver and see if Roy had typed in live chat. Roy says in a 14-team half PPR, in a 14-team 5-point per passing touchdown half PPR. Wait, no, it's a half point per rush, 1 point per rushing first down. Okay, so this is a completely different league than I've ever been associated with. I don't even know what the scoring format looks like. So if you're going to ask me to rank running backs, I couldn't even tell you. But let's continue on. Let's see here. Nix, Darnold, or Winston. If I'm talking about this week, who I'd rather start Nix out of all of them. Especially considering you get half a point per rush and a point per rushing first down. I mean, again, Nix is the running quarterback of the group. And then you'd be replacing Anthony Richardson, dropping Green Bay defense, hesitant to drop Anthony Richardson with rushing upside. You shouldn't be hesitant. Just drop him for Nix. And also, if you were going to pick up another quarterback as well, pick up Darnold as well. He also has rushing upside, theoretically. Thank you, Roy. All right, let's see here. Anything from, there we go. All right, so let's check this out. I will wait. Let's see here. Brian, Colorado, anything? I don't see Colorado's name in the chat. We'll go ahead and patiently wait for that. And then once it comes back around, we'll answer it. Let me scroll back up to answer a couple more of these questions that were sent in. Dylan, Brian, Colorado, if you guys can, do me a favor, type those questions in the chat. Jamar Joseph says, Downs or Worthy? I'd rather have Downs. Thank you. We move on to King Alec, who says, Andrew, in a full PPR, I need help for a must-win Baker or Darnold. I'd rather have Darnold this week against, the Indianapolis secondary. Leaning towards Darnold, which I am as well, playing prime time. Flex Addison, McMillan, or Algier. Out of those available, I'm going to flex McMillan out of the group. I don't feel comfortable flexing Addison, especially with Hawkinson's return, who's going to get himself a lot of target opportunity. And Addison's almost invisible within that offense. He pretty much, at a best case scenario, catches the ball 3 times. He'd have to score a touchdown to be relevant. Caesar sends in a question. Says, in a 4-4 situation, I'm 6 out of 10 in the league. Okay, in a half PPR, Kyler, Hill, Olave, Marvin Harrison, BTJ, Smitty, Cook, Bijan, Stevenson, pretty good looking team. Brooks, you have Pat, you have Bowers, you have Madison. Anything I should do for my team? There are 4 other teams that are 4-4. Okay, I mean, look, when I look at this team as a whole, right, you have a top 12 quarterback in Kyler Murray. You have incredibly high upside potential with Tyreek Hill. Olave should be top 15, if not better, rest of the season. Marvin Harrison, BTJ, again, as long as their quarterbacks continue to send them the ball, they will be relevant. Smitty is also a fantastic wide receiver. James Cook, Bijan Robinson, fantastic running backs. You have the best tight end in football with Bowers outside of, George Kittle as of right now. I don't see that you have to make a move. I truly don't. Now, if you were going to make a move, it would only be done in the situation in which you are sending away a wide receiver in order to try to recoup some value at running back. Like, you would send away Stevenson with perhaps either BTJ, Marvin Harrison, or Smitty in order to try to get a huge upgraded running back. That's what you would do. That's the only way in which I see a move theoretically kind of helping this team. Unless you're moving Stevenson with Smitty for a running back, and as for which running backs we'd go after, again, as of right now, I'm in the business of trying to get like an Aaron Jones on team. I'd also be interested in the business of trying to see guys that haven't had like huge upside performances that we might be able to kind of buy low on theoretically there. But obviously, Aaron Jones comes to mind first because of how well he has played when healthy and at a full capacity. I'd also be in the business of Kenneth Walker. I'd go knock on that door for sure. I'd even be willing to give more for that. But outside of that, really, honestly, a strong team. Now that you get everybody at a full capacity, Olave, Hill, Marvin Harrison, Smitty, like, you should be rolling teams going forward. Gabriel Martin says, would you drop Khalil Shakir for Juwan Jennings? Would you drop Khalil Shakir or Juwan Jennings for Downs? Yes, I would drop Juwan Jennings for Downs right now, immediately. Lethal Jake says, big week. It's me versus the other team at 6-2. And the second to me in points scored. Lineup is pretty set. Just debating Tillman or Keenan Allen. And defense to grab. Yeah, I'm going to play Tillman there. As for defenses to grab, you just got to let me know what's available. Just type it in the live chat. Thank you. Speaking of live chat, let me go ahead and scroll back to see if Brian Colorado had sent in anything in terms of context. Maybe, okay, there it is. Brian Colorado says, best players to target in a full PPR superflex. I have Chase, DK, Devontae, Montgomery, Jacobs, Kyron, Bowers, Komet. Okay, let's think about this objectively. Kyron and Jacobs should be theoretically top 12 running backs rest of the way. Montgomery should be a top 16 running back rest of the way, if not, maybe like a top 18 in a full PPR, considering he doesn't get much receiving utilization. But like the only way to upgrade running back is to give one of those players and then something else to go get somebody that's better off. Again, I wouldn't even suggest doing it. I'd keep it as is. Now, again, you have DK Metcalf, Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, great wide receivers that, when healthy, are fantastic. DK Metcalf, once he gets healthy, you're good to go. Bowers, the best tight end in football outside of, Kittle. Really, your biggest issue right now is that Jordan Love got injured, and that's about it. Now, as to who I am potentially targeting, if you had more wide receiver depth, I'd be like, cool, maybe we can take Devontae Smith and Montgomery and just go get an absolute monster, go after a Tyreek Hill and just 2-for-1 it and say, fuck it. But as of right now, I want to keep the depth. There's so many bye weeks ahead that you need to keep depth. So really, I don't think there's a necessity. You want to sell high on Josh Jacobs, you can. Just go after another running back. Go after Kenneth Walker, right? Like these are potential applications that you could kind of send in to see if there's any sort of reciprocation or interest from teams in your league. But otherwise, I look at your team and I think to myself, man, I don't know if we have to. Also, how are we doing in your home league? Best team or record? Listen, let me explain to you how my home league works. Just so we have an understanding of the context. Before I get to that, my home league. Thank you for the question, Brian. Lethal Jake says, I sashed Baltimore can grab New England or Cincy. Baltimore versus Denver. Their secondary sucks. Baltimore's defense cannot stop a soul. So honestly, I'd rather have Cincy. And even though Cincy's defense is terrible, at least I can guarantee that Minshew's going to turn over the ball enough to be a problem. Kenneth McKinney in the chat says, when do we think Pacheco returns? I'm assuming at the very latest, week 11, hopefully week 10. Hopefully within the next 24 hours, they activate him off the 21-day window pup list and they can get him going, hopefully. Now, as for your question, Brian, in my home league, I am tied for third place. Understand that my home league has a bunch of savages in it. When I say savages, I mean people that, again, I haven't won my home league. I didn't win last year. I won the year before. I've only won my home league twice in the last 8 seasons. Okay, I play against the savages, and on top of it, they can all watch my videos and know who to play at the right times, right? So it's just like, it's competitive as hell, and it's a super flex Omega League, 7 bench spots, 2 IR spots, 10 starting positions. Ridiculous. But yeah, I'm tied for third. Slowly but surely getting there. Okay, continuing on. Let me go back. Let me see if there's a potential in which we had a question that was sent in from, let's see, let's copy this. All right, Dylan says, I don't know, it keeps happening where you can't see my chat. No, I see the one above. So this is what happens. If you guys send in the same message multiple times, the YouTube automated system will auto ban you and it'll shadow ban you so where I can't see your message. I swear to God it happens. We figured that out a couple days back. So be very careful. If you're going to send in the same question twice, change some aspect of it. Change some sort of order or the verbiage in which you utilize. But I do see that other question, Dylan. It says, Daniels, Lamb, Olave, BTJ, Deontay Johnson, Thielen, Achane, Pollard, Swift, Dowdle, McBride, some other bench, and KC. So just to get some context here, let me copy this overall message and let me take it here. And then let me go ahead and travel back into this question that you had originally sent. So I have a context as to what the heck we're talking about. So full PPR, this is what your team looks like. Daniels, which is great. You're never going to replace him. Lamb is great. Olave is great. BTJ is great. Deontay Johnson, don't really care for. Thielen, don't really care for. Achane, great. Pollard's great. Swift is great. Dowdle is solid as in terms of depth. McBride is great. Really, I mean, the only kind of pivoting position you have is sending away Deontay Johnson and trying to kind of cash in on the hype of him going to the Baltimore Ravens. Maybe someone's like, oh, man, he's going to be so good. I'm not interested. Let's get him out of there. So that's what I look forward to. Outside of that, again, I don't see myself replacing Daniels, Lamb, Olave, BTJ. There's no need to, unless someone's going to make a mistake and give you a significantly higher kind of rated player. Like if someone wants to go ahead and give you Neighbors for Olave, be my guest. If they want to give you Neighbors for BTJ, be my guest. But again, I don't think that your league mates are dumb. They could be. I don't know. Achane, Pollard, Swift. Again, moving out of those players is not necessary. They all play very well and they are very consistent. And McBride is also an awesome tight end. So really, I don't know if there's a necessity to move. If there is a necessity to move, it's again moving Deontay Johnson taking him, and maybe you could theoretically take him, take Pollard, pair them together, and go for a running back. That is always a possibility, but it'd have to be a running back that is kind of within that same range. You'd have to like kind of slightly upgrade to Aaron Jones or hope somebody makes a mistake and gives you Kenneth Walker, right? Otherwise, no, there's no way. You've got a really solid team across the board there, Dylan. That's the issue, which again, a blessing and a curse at the same time. All right, scrolling down here, let me get back to answering some of these questions. We've been a little bit sidetracked with a lot of the other questions here. Okay, we took care of that one. We took care of that one. Holy moly, I'm trying to catch up. There are so many. All right, Fuzzy says in a 12-team league, Purdy, Stroud, Bijan, Henry, Pollard, Tillman, Keon, Pitts, Otten, would you recommend trying to trade Pollard, quarterback, or tight end for downs or a wide receiver? Ayuk and Diggs got hurt. I'm 6-2. Okay. So in this circumstance, if it's not a 2 QB league, I don't mind trading away a quarterback. That is not an issue. That just seems like free, it's just fodder at that point, because you can just go pick up Stafford or you can pick up Jameis Winston and be perfectly fine on a bye week situation. So in terms of like Bijan, Henry, Pollard, obviously Bijan and Henry do not move. Pollard would kind of be a potential, I know he's currently set as your flex in a full PPR. You have Team Tillman. Okay, so this is the way that I'd go about it. If you're going to trade for downs, it is probably going to require Pollard. But additionally, I would want a running back in return, because if anything happens, you are screwed. You have no running back depth. So I'd only ever make that move if I'm going to get also a running back in return. So you'd have to be like, hey, I'm going to give you Pollard and I'm going to give you K-Dot in here. You're going to have to give me this wide receiver and this running back. And it would have to be a lower kind of valued running back like a Rico Dowdle or something, but at least something you get in return to have the depth on roster. Otherwise, you can't really variably move by moving a running back and not getting one in return. Sean K says PPR Devontae Smith or Devontae Adams rest of the season. Unless Devontae Adams flips a 150, 160, 180, whatever you want to call it, hit a 360 no scope. Unless he wants to do something of that extent, it's Devontae Smith. To the max says, sup, Andrew. See any trades options in a full PPR in a one flex league? I have Jalen Hurts, I have Connor, I have Mason, I have BTJ, Reed, Kraft, Flowers. My bench consists of Mayfield, Trey Benson, Bigsby, Christian McCaffrey, Brian Robinson Jr., Nico Collins, and Sam Laporta. I mean, look, in about a week's time, right? Your starting lineup is going to consist of Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, James Conner, BTJ, Nico Collins, Kraft and Flowers in the flex, or Brian Robinson Jr. I don't see a necessity to have to trade, but if in fact you were going to do so, you would do so in the manner of sending away either BTJ or Reed or Flowers. One of those wide receivers would be trade fodder. But you're not trading for a running back. You don't need one. You have Connor, Christian McCaffrey, and Brian Robinson. You would just trade one of them to try to see if you can get an improvement at wide receiver. You could maybe even trade two of them to try to get an improvement at wide receiver. Like you send somebody Reed and Flowers and you're going after Drake London. You know what I mean? Like that's how you would have to approach it. You'd have to go for a 2-for-1 special in which you're getting one player in return to a team that is wide receiver starving. Papa Bless sends in a follow-up, says Moore and Brian Robinson for London or Hill. Comment above, plus comment above. Papa Bless, I don't know if your message is probably not in the live chat if I had to guess. Yeah, it's not in the live chat because that was sent in a long time ago. I apologize for not getting to it quick enough, but again, it is the circumstance of the live stream. Apologies. In terms of making that trade, if I can get Tyreek Hill for that, I have no issue with it. Assuming, of course, Brian Robinson is not your RB3, and trading him away doesn't leave you with your next best running back is having to play in bye week situations or injury situations like, oh, my best running back is like Algier. No, I don't want that kind of a situation. If you've got 3 or 4 star running backs and giving away Brian Robinson is not going to impact you negatively, then yes, we would take. Honestly, I take either of the two, but I'd prefer to take Hill in this circumstance. Andrew Mitchell says, hey, Andrew, in a 6-point per passing touchdown league, pick one. Stafford, Winston, or Flacco for Purdy bye week. As of right now, I'd rather have Stafford. Then I would go with Flacco second and Winston third. Thank you. Moving on to Luke C., who says in a PPR, Kincaid and Cooper for McBride. I have wide receivers Lad McConkey, Tillman, Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf, and Ricky Pearsall. I mean, honestly, it could be argued that Amari Cooper could be your second or third most valuable wide receiver of the group in about 2 weeks' time. But if you just want to get rid of, the potential of Kincaid cashing on his most recent value in order to get a better tight end, I don't have an issue with the trade, Luke. Because again, rest of the way, Devontae Smith and DK auto start. Everything else is kind of just up in the air, flexible starts, which again, I'm fine with. Twisted Folk says in a half PPR, someone crazy dropped Metcalf. Drop Deontay Johnson or D-Hop? I'd rather drop Deontay Johnson, to be honest. If I can't get Metcalf, Ridley and Tillman are available. Would you drop Deontay Johnson or D-Hop for either of them? No, I would not. I feel like I should just wait for if no Metcalf. Correct. You got it perfectly on point, Twisted Folk. Thank you. Rogo says, but who and what do I prioritize? Am I dropping Mason? Yeah, you have to drop Mason. Let me go to your prior question, Rogo. Okay, so in terms of your prior question here. Okay, so who and what do you prioritize? As of right now, if you are going to make an actual priority move, the rest of your team, when I look at your team, you have Cooper, you have Gibbs, you have Hunt, you have Kincaid, you have Swift, Seibert, David Montgomery, Debo, Devontae Smith, Chubb, Higgins. There are no wide receivers on the waiver wire outside of a Downs that you could pick up and theoretically have as a valuable starting option on your team. Actually, you're playing in a half PPR. Never mind. He wouldn't be valuable. So really, you're just prioritizing picking up Matthew Stafford, and you're either dropping CJ Stroud or you're not dropping him, and you're keeping CJ Stroud, Baker Mayfield for the rest of the season. It's a matter of, do you want to wait this week and just play Baker and then just have him and Stroud rest of the season? Or do you want to prioritize trying to win this week and losing CJ Stroud as the droppable option in that circumstance? That is the sacrifice you theoretically have to make there. Appreciate it. Moving on to a question from Jerry Garza. Thank you, Jerry. It says in a 12-team standard, 6-2, been offered Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, McLaurin, for Gibbs, DK, Xavier Legette, and Jake Ferguson. Okay. So out of the group, Christian McCaffrey, once healthy, is a more valuable prospect than Gibbs. Then Josh Jacobs, in comparison to DK Metcalf, I could say that they have relatively similar value in a standard format, but maybe Josh Jacobs has a little bit of an edge. And then McLaurin, significantly more valuable than Legette and Ferguson combined. I would take the Christian McCaffrey side, to be honest. Again, if you have the ability to pick up Isaac Guerendo as well, to have that insurance policy attached to your lineup going forward, I think it very much so be very helpful in this circumstance. I'd make that deal. Looking at your current depth on roster, you got some good wide receivers and running backs already in line. You're just making the team stronger. Is it risky? Absolutely. There's always inherent risk, but I think picking up Isaac Guerendo, I don't know why I keep calling him Isaiah. Isaac Guerendo provides the kind of bottled up risk at only so much of an extent, because he would be the guy that kind of runs it if in fact McCaffrey's going to miss any more specific time. Jack Baylor says, in a full PPR, I'm currently 5-3. Should I trade Brian Robinson or J.K. Dobbins for Sam Laporta for James Conner and Jake Ferguson? As of right now, I'm okay with trading away J.K. Dobbins and Laporta for James Conner and Ferguson. I think Sam Laporta probably balls out rest of the way, if I had to guess. Again, this season has been testing patience with tight ends. We saw it early in the year with Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts. A lot of us wanted to drop him. A lot of us did drop him. It's a matter of being patient at tight end. And I think if you have kept Sam Laporta thus far, I think keeping the patience going, because rest of the way he probably clicks into the offense now and probably goes back to being the Sam Laporta of old, if I had to guess. So I'd probably just keep, because he is more valuable than Jake Ferguson. And yes, even though James Conner I do prefer over J.K. Dobbins, again, it's a matter of the tight end value separation in my mind. Eric Nixon says Kittle's on bye. Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson, or Noah Fant. Yeah, if Bryce Young is playing quarterback for the Carolina Panthers this week, I will play Taysom Hill. Otherwise, I will probably, in a full PPR, play Noah Fant there. Daniel Barnes. Actually, you know what? Juwan Johnson last time played pretty well. So yeah, never mind. It would be Taysom Hill or Juwan Johnson. Taysom Hill in a half PPR standard, Juwan Johnson in a full PPR. Daniel Barnes says, I have Lamb, Drake, BTJ, Marvin Harrison, DJ Moore, add Downs, 5 bench spots. If you can add him, why not? Again, you're going to probably have to trade him in a couple weeks here. But am I dropping any of those wide receivers for him? Probably not. I think the name value of those guys could probably get more in terms of a trade option in comparison. Maybe you take 2 of those guys, Marvin Harrison, DJ Moore, trade them for 1 player, then pick up Downs if you can only roster 5 wide receivers on your team. Joseph Weintraub sent in a question, nothing attached to it. I'm going to check in the chat right now. So did Ben. Ben Chesler had also sent in a question, nothing attached to it. Let me write your names down. So we need to find Joseph's question and we need to find Ben. And then Victor just said, chat, thanks, man. Hope you're having a great night. Thank you very much, Victor. I'm going to check the chat right now. Head Shop says Devontae Adams / Hubbard for Harrison and Pollard. Yeah, I'll take the Harrison Pollard side of that deal. pretty comfortably, actually. Just because of the running back depth. I mean, that is what is, in my opinion, the most valuable prospect of the entire trade. Obviously, the New York Yankees have blown this game out of complete proportion. They have just boat raced us out of the building, to say the very least, which is, it is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Okay, let's see here. Continuing on, we have to find Joseph. Where the heck is Joseph? Joseph says, for some reason, I sent my question twice. Didn't receive anything from my end. I'm sorry. No, you're good. If you could do me a favor, Joseph, just type it in the live chat again. Again, like I mentioned before, if you guys type in the same question multiple times in the live chat, it is going to auto ban, shadow ban you. I don't have control of it. It just auto does it because of YouTube's system of trying to protect my chat from getting spammed on. So again, just type it in the chat, Joseph. Let me see if I can find Ben's question in the chat. All right, let's see. Where's Ben at? I see a lot of Bengals. I see the word bench. Ben Chesler says in a 14-team half PPR, I'm 5-3. I have Mahomes trying to waiver Stafford very well. Hunt, Javonte, Jonathan Brooks, Eckler. Okay, so you have no running back depth is what I'm hearing. CeeDee Lamb, London, BTJ Dell, Pearsall, Kelsey. Do I trade London for HN? Yes, I would. Yeah, absolutely, I would. Especially if you're playing in a PPR, half PPR, doesn't matter, whichever one of the two, I would make the deal. Absolutely. Because again, that was going to be my immediate suggestion. Take one of your stud wide receivers and go break it off for a stud running back. If you can't do it, if CeeDee Lamb and London are guys you want to keep, then you would take BTJ and Dell and have to go after lesser options at running back. Like you would take Dell right now and you would have to go and scoop up maybe, I mean, you'd go after Tony Pollard. You could try that, or you'd have to go after like a Chase Brown, which we don't love as much. All right, let's see here. What was the next name? Victor. Let's find Victor in the live chat. Victor, let's see. I have to actually find your name, Victor, fully, so I know. Okay, Victor Blanco. It should be in the live chat. I think I saw it there. Victor Blanco says, I have Reed, J.K. Dobbins, Hopkins, Tolbert, or any waiver wire I get number one. I'm so confused as to the context of that. That one's weird. Reed / J.K. Dobbins / Hopkins / Tolbert, or any of the waiver I got number one pick. Are you able to pick up any of these players? Is that what you're basically saying? If that is what you are conveying, that you could pick up any of those players, and please confirm that in the live chat by typing it in my direction. Just let me know yes or no. If you could pick up any of those players, is that what you're asking me? Which one would I suggest you picking up? Thank you. All right, continuing on. Let's go back into the chat here. We had the Real Franklin says, in a full PPR, if I can pull off and obtain Kyron Williams and Pickens and give Montgomery, Flowers, and Hopkins, should I go for it? I would. Yeah, I would. Or am I overpaying? I don't think you're overpaying. I'm fine with that trade. I don't have an issue with it. Mike Carnival sends in a question, says, should I pick up Darnold and drop Dak? I would, yes. God's Gang says, own both ETN and Tank. What to do going forward? If you're in a full PPR, you're probably starting ETN every game. If you're in a half PPR standard, you're probably starting Tank every game. Otherwise, unless you're in a pinch, you're not starting them both, because I don't think the offense is capable of functioning with two running backs at a higher tier upside. Unless, of course, they're going to be just as powerful as an offense as what Tampa Bay has done. Auntie Slayer says, on the waivers, I have Dowdle, Guerrero, Ridley, Leggett, and Christian Watson. Dowdle is the most valuable player of the bunch. Outside of that, if you need a wide receiver, then you would go after Ridley theoretically there. Luke C says, PPR trade Devontae Adams for McBride. I have Lad McConkey, Olave, Tyreek Hill, Tillman. Drop Denver defense for Chandler. I have Vikings defense. Drop Jordan Mason for Leggett. Okay, so do I love the idea of trading Devontae Adams for McBride? Not entirely. Really, I'm not entirely on board with that per se. If you need a tight end desperately, when I look at your wide receiver core, like you'll start Tyreek Hill and Olave rest of season every game, but who's playing in your flex? Devontae Adams could be that guy. But again, if you're in desperate need of a tight end and you have nothing else available, then of course at that point, sure, drop him off, make the trade. Dropping Denver's defense, I don't have an issue with, even though I really do like their upcoming schedule after this week. Picking up Chandler in exchange for it, again, that's very much so just handcuff proof. If you need to ensure that you have, Aaron Jones handcuff, and then dropping Jordan Mason for Leggett is fine by me. Tyler C137 says in a Superflex full PPR tight end premium, start 3 for the flex. We have Chubb, Mooney, Madison, Kelsey, Otten, Njoku. Yeah, out of those available players, Tyler, I'm playing all 3 tight ends this week in a tight end premium. I am playing Kelsey, Otten, and Njoku. My other starters are Justin Herbert, Mixon. Yeah, you're cool. I'd start all 3 of the overall tight ends. Thank you. God's Gang says week 12, I'm screwed with 7 players. London, Hall, Braylon Allen, Higgins, Olave, Etienne, Tank, all on bye. Address the situation now or wait. I'm 5-3. May ditch my handcuffs that week. For that specific week, you'll either have to ditch your handcuffs or just cut your losses and take the L. Hopefully, by that point, you are not going to be in a situation where you are completely cooked and you'll need that win. If you'll need that win by that point, the trade deadline will be gone and you'll just lose the week and you'll have to drop those handcuffs. But we'll have to wait and see. For now, I'm not going to address it, though. If you were like 3-5, I'd say yes, address it. But unless you were considering you have a positive record, you don't need to. Nick Q3435 says JT or Downs this week. We'll get there when we get there. As of the top of my head, I'm gonna probably say that I'd rather play JT as of right now. But I see where the direction you're going in, and I don't mind it. There's a lot of potential there. That definitely is. For some reason, okay, so we took care of that. Let me see here. There's a lot of potential in which there's a possibility of him outscoring. He could outscore Jonathan Taylor. I'm hoping that's not the case because I've got some Jonathan Taylor shares that I don't want to completely disappear here, but we'll just have to hope that he doesn't. All right, we took care of that. Let me go ahead and continue on answering some of these questions, trying to catch up to the best of my ability. Sorry for the delay on some of these answers. Okay, continuing on. 80603 didn't send in anything attached to it, so I'm just gonna hope that you typed in the live chat recently. For if you did, maybe I can see your question, hopefully. 80603, whatever your name is. The numbers. Mason, what do they mean? Do me a favor and type your question in the chat. Thank you. Okay, until that one comes through. We had Braden, who says in a 4-4 full PPR, any moves rest of year? We have Lamar, JT, Kamara, Marvin Harrison, Smitty, Achane, Kraft, Dobbs, Wando Robinson, Bigsby, Warren, JMO, Amari Cooper. I mean, looking at your starting lineup, Lamar, JT, Kamara, Smitty, Achane, Marvin Harrison, you don't theoretically have to make a move. You don't. You still have Kraft as well. You have wide receiver depth that if Marvin Harrison was to disappear anytime soon, you have Dobbs and Amari Cooper that can fill in for him. And you have running back depth in Bigsby and Warren. So no, I don't think there's a necessity to have to make any moves the rest of the season. Unless somebody, again, is going to make a mistake and give you a player that is far more valued than where it currently stands. Like if someone wants to give you Neighbors again for Smitty, then you take it. Demise says, I forgot, did you say Scary Terry overhaul in the flex? Yeah, I said it's just safer to roll with that. Yes. JK says, in a half PPR, 1 quarterback league, do I drop CJ Stroud for Stafford, Bo, Cousins, or Dak? Yeah, I drop him for... honestly, if you want rest of season value, I think Stroud is going to be of value. But if you're just looking for this week's start, it's for Stafford. Or Bo Nix, either of those two. Fernando Perez says, Saints, Philly, Washington, or Cincinnati in order. As of right now, I have it Cincinnati 1. I have Philly 2. I have Saints 3. I have Washington 4. Saints would go up if I get a confirmation that it is going to, in fact, be Bryce Young. But I still have Cincinnati as the one that you should probably take now just to be safe. JK says, drop Denver defense or keep streaming Saints/Commanders. That's fine by me. If you're going to keep, I mean, look, when I look at their upcoming schedule here, right? Broncos schedule. The upcoming games against Kansas City is not really a great one. But then I think I talked about this the other day. Where I want this defense is from weeks 12 through 17. I want to play them against Las Vegas, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Cincinnati. Until then, you could probably drop them if you're not going to utilize them. And you're just going to play the waivers. That's fine. I'm Gucci U Polo says, I'm 4-4 in a full PPR. I need a tight end. Trade BTJ and Ertz for Bowers and Mostert. My lineup now is Kyler, Achane, Kyron, Hill, London. Yeah, you're good. I mean, again, you have a lot of depth to be able to make a move like that. So you're chilling to go. Yeah, that's a great trade. Gabriel Martin says, drop Dallas Goedert for Kate Otten. Absolutely, yes. Alan D says, in a PPR flex, Chubb, DJ Moore, JSN, or Bigsby. Out of those available in a full PPR, I mean, again, I'm going to play DJ Moore unless, in fact, we have a DK Metcalf out this week. If he's out, then at that point, you need to play JSN. So DJ Moore, contingency of playing JSN. Quarterback Baker or Bo. I'd rather play Bo Nix this week. Corey Miller says, in a PPR, start Brian Thomas, Olave, Ferguson, Brian Thomas or Olave, Ferguson or Schultz. Got it. So as of right now, between Brian Thomas Jr. or Olave, if for sure Derek Carr is going to play this week against Carolina, at that point, I'm probably going to play Olave. Next, as for Ferguson versus Schultz, Ferguson versus Dallas takes on, I'm trying to remember. Why can't I remember? Atlanta. Yeah, I'm cool with playing Ferguson there over Schultz. Thank you. Justin says, Pearsall, JMO, Cedric, Coleman. Need to have JMO right now. If you need to start this week, it's Cedric and Coleman. Those are the two. Thank you. Cyanide says, drop Bigsby or D-Hop for Tracy or stay put. Bigsby or D-Hop for Tracy. I honestly, at this point, let me look at your running back depth. JT, Connor, Dobbins. No, you can stay put. You're fine. I will say, though, I think I do prefer Tracy over Bigsby rest of the season. I think that's the swap that I make, though, honestly. Because ETN will eventually come back. Tracy's won the job outright. Jay sends in a question. Thank you, Jay. Jay says, I have Jordan Love, David Montgomery, Jonathan Taylor, Chuba Hubbard, Bigsby, Connor, Brooks, CD, Neighbors, Debo, Pickens, Kraft, Laporta, Hawkinson. 8-man full PPR, any moves. Look, considering you're in an 8-man league, you know you have an all-star team. Montgomery and Jonathan Taylor should probably start every week. You have Connor as your RB3 just in case. CD, Neighbors, Debo, Pickens. Those start every week. Your tight ends are studs with 3 of them. Jordan Love, obviously, is probably someone that you want to kind of make a move for in terms of going and picking up Matthew Stafford off of the waivers, if in fact available. Outside of that, if I'm making a move, the move that I theoretically would make is probably taking Pickens plus a running back and then trying to see if you can go find a team, or maybe you can take 2 of your tight ends, or maybe 1 of your tight ends, pair it with Pickens and go get an upgraded wide receiver. Theoretically, that's possible, but it'd have to be to a team in an 8-man league that doesn't have a tight end. I'd assume everybody has a tight end in your league. Chef Rain sends in a question, says, half PPR, JD5, Brees, Achane, Kupp, Puka, London, McLaurin, McBride, bench, Tracy, Juju, Bucky. 12 teams. I'm in second. Would you hold or try to make an upgrade? I mean, looking at the team as a whole, Brees Hall and Achane, very difficult to upgrade them both. Puka, Kupp, London, McBride, McLaurin, JD5. It is very difficult to upgrade. Again, unless someone is going to give you, unless you can give away Cooper Kupp and Tyrone Tracy, and someone is going to somehow, some way bless you with giving you Tyreek Hill. There's very few players going forward that are better options than what you currently have on roster. And that is why I'd probably just say stick with it in the 12-team league, because otherwise you're going to have to overpay for players. But again, that would be an available option. If someone wants to give you that, then you take it. Vino Chino says, in a full PPR, 14-team league, I'm in a 1 quarterback, 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 2 flex, 1 tight end league. Trade is Kupp and Hunt for A.J. Brown. Cool, yeah, I'll take A.J. Brown the rest of the season. No questions asked. I don't even care about the rest of your team in terms of overall context. I'd much rather have A.J. Brown than Kupp and Hunt the rest of the way. Auntie Slayer says, Keon Coleman over Dowdle on the waivers. If you don't need a running back, then sure, yes. Otherwise, Dowdle is a guaranteed RB1 for that team rest of the way. But again, if you're in need of a wide receiver depth kind of play going forward, then Keon is that guy. If we're talking about just like who's going to fill in for the flex rest of the way, I'd probably just rather pick up Dowdle. DMND sends in a question, says, trade Brees Hall for Drake and Pollard. If you're in need of a wide receiver depth kind of play, then sure. Otherwise, if you're not in need of that kind of wide receiver depth, it's going to be tough. If you're just making the move just to make the move, it's tough. Can we see rankings? Will Downs cook this week? Downs is absolutely going to cook this week. Now, as for can we see rankings? Again, I posted rankings earlier today in regards to the top 40 running backs. Tomorrow, I'll post on the channel top 40 wide receivers. Thursday, I'll post top 16 quarterbacks and tight ends. And then, of course, on Sunday morning, we'll have up-to-date rankings ready to go. Outside of that, I think I caught up on every single question. I know Victor Blanco had sent in a follow-up. He said, full PPR, Christian McCaffrey owner, please help. Waiver bench is Tolbert, Mason. Okay, Tolbert droppable, Mason droppable. Juwan Jennings, we keep. Jameson Williams, we'd keep. Hopkins, we'd keep. Do I drop any for the bench? Yes, you can drop Tolbert and you can drop Mason. Garendo is picked up in exchange for Mason. Outside of that, you're dropping Tolbert in order to pick up, looking at what is available on this list, the most valuable in a full PPR is either Shakir or Sutton. I'd put him in that order. Those are the two that I want most there, Victor. Thank you. Okay, guys. Typically, I try to keep these live streams from an hour to an hour and a half. We're hour and 40 in here, so I'm going to answer this final question, and then I'm checking out. I appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow night to live stream as well. Alfredo, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check your message after this next one, so you'll be the final question of the day. Thank you. DKJK says, in a 10-man league, okay, Kevin Smith will also be one of the final questions. Okay, Kofi's going to also be one of the final questions. Jeez, guys. Okay, half PPR, no tight end premium, in a 1 quarterback, 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end. Okay, I understand. Got it. 1, okay. Also, you said Stafford or Bo Nix. Who's better rest of season? Stafford's better rest of season. Players list below. JK bench. Okay, look, as of right. Okay. I'll check that in a second. Let's see where you are. Hopefully you did type it below. I'm waiting for you to type that, JK. Until then, Kevin Smith says, sup, Andrew. I have Russ, Fields, and Caleb on roster at quarterback. Should I pick up Stafford and Flacco? Yeah, I would drop Fields and Russ, and I'd pick up Stafford and Flacco, legitimately. I'm stacking every other spot. Yeah, cool. That's the way that I go about it. Kofi Kingston sends in a question. Says, Downs or Tillman on waiver? I'd much rather have Downs, especially if you're in a full PPR. Downs would be the guy. If you're in a half PPR, I'd still consider Downs, but at that point, I'd be a little bit more open to the idea of pivoting to Tillman. What percentage of fab would you drop on Warren? Drop Warren or single? Okay, wait. How much fab would I spend and then drop Warren or Singletary? I have Tracy. Warren is going to have more rest of season value. If you just want to hold Singletary just to play him this week because you have to start him, then you'd hold him and you drop Warren. But you'd pick up Downs, and I'd legitimately, I'm not joking, if you're playing in a full PPR, Kofi Kingston, you are, I said it earlier, I think I dropped 30% because he's a 15-point wide receiver minimum rest of season. All right, JK sends in a question, says, can I trade for Adams? Who can I trade for Adams? It depends what the context is of your roster. It's a very broad question, to say the very least. DKJK says, CJ, CD, Olave, Reed, Marvin Harrison, Pollard, Achane, JT, Pearsall, Brooks, Flowers, Kincaid, and Mark Andrews. Okay, let me go back up to your question. Any moves to make, theoretically? And then obviously we want to pick up Stafford here. So any moves to make? CeeDee Lamb doesn't move. Olave doesn't move. Reed and Marvin Harrison could theoretically move. Achane, Pollard, and JT. Okay, so this is the only way that I would suggest you going about this, JK. The only move that you should make, if you were going to make one, in a league in which you can only start 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1 flex, okay? Actually, you don't even start flex in this league. So in that case, I'm 2 for 1ing everything on your team. I'm legitimately, no questions asked. I'm taking guys like Marvin Harrison plus Pollard, or Marvin Harrison plus, or maybe Reed plus Marvin Harrison, and I'm trading 2 for 1s for either top tier wide receivers or top tier running backs. That's the way that you improve this team. That's the way you would go about it, at the very least. JK says, sorry, full PPR, looking to trade away Adams. Who can I target? Cool. So the names that I want in exchange: Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Olave, Metcalf, Higgins, Pickens. Those are the kind of guys that I want. If you can't get them now, then you're going to have to wait until Adams puts together a solid performance, and then at that point, ship him away. Because again, still, we want to ship him away. Thank you. All right, Freddie, final question of the night. Freddie says, I'm in a 2. Okay, I'm in need of an RB2. Out of London Neighbors, Puka, Hill, which should I trade to get an RB, and who do I go for? Okay, so look, I would like to keep all 4 of these receivers, but whichever wide receiver is going to get you the most haul in return, that's who you ship off. So if trading away Tyreek Hill is going to get you back Saquon Barkley, then you would make that deal, right? I'm willing to trade away any of these wide receivers, but you have to get back a top 8 running back. Like legitimately, unless someone is going to give you, just going off of the top of my mind here, in terms of running backs that I would want in return, unless someone's giving you, and I quote, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, Kyron Williams, Alvin Kamara, which you have on roster already, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Devon Achane, Jahmyr Gibbs, unless somebody's giving, Jonathan Taylor, someone's giving you those. Kenneth Walker could be argued as well. Someone's giving you those, unless that is what is coming in return, Freddie, we are not shipping those players off for just, for shits and giggles. You feel me? Again, I'll keep talking to you about it once I get onto Discord. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all coming through. Lastly, Denver Aubrey. Got it, JK. Denver and Aubrey are fine. And again, if you want to swap out Denver this week, I think it'd probably be smart. But 2-for-1 deals is the play, JK. It's a 2-flex league? Oh, shoot. You don't make any trades then. Considering the 2-flex format, you keep everything as is. You do not make any trades. Because if you can start CJ Stroud, okay, so theoretically, you start Lamb, Olave, Reed, Marvin Harrison, Pollard, Achane, JT. One of those would sit every week based on matchup, which this week Reed is going to probably sit if Jordan Love is going to go. Yeah, at that point, you don't make any moves. You keep it as is because you need the depth, because you can play 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flex every week. So you need to have at least 8 solid players on roster to be able to suffice and have that rotation for bye weeks, injuries, etc. So you keep it as is. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to go ahead and cue the music. Have a great rest of your night. I'll be back tomorrow with top 40 wide receivers. And, of course, back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Until then, I'll see you guys. Peace.